association with Zenith Bank.
The US has a civility problem, and that is the sobering conclusion of a new study by the Society for Human Resource Management, which says Americans collectively experienced or witnessed a total of 71 million daily instances of incivility in their workplaces over the past month. The study says each incident results in an average productivity loss of 31 minutes. And if you factor in absenteeism due to incivility, a daily productivity loss of more than $2 billion, a number that the group calls unsustainable. Joining us now is Johnny C. Taylor Jr., President and CEO of the Society for Human Resource Management. So great to have you with us. Thanks so much for joining us. This is pretty shocking. I mean, firstly, the number of incivility cases that we're seeing in the United States, the loss of productivity, what the ultimate cost is. But tell me, what does this pertain to? What are people being uncivil about in the workplace?
So you name it. You know, we used to say politics, but everything's politics now. All social issues are the causes of these angst. People simply have gotten to a point where if I don't agree with you, then you're bad, and I hold you in contempt. And it's not just that you're bad. Anyone like you, your relatives, your friends, etc., are bad. And so we've literally found ourselves in a boxing ring of sorts where people go to their respective corners, and my position is different from yours, and you're bad because your position is by definition different than mine.
So hold on, is U.S. politics at the center of this? I mean, do we know how U.S. politics is affecting things within the workplace?
Right. Well, for obvious reasons now, as we approach November 5th, U.S. politics is what is the conversation. Tens of millions of people, as you pointed out in your earlier segment, tuned in for the debate the other night, and the day afterwards, that's all people were talking about in the workplace. And since the U.S. electorate is so divided, I mean, it's roughly 50-50. People, no matter, you have a very good shot, and the odds are not agreeing with the colleagues sitting to your right or to your left. And so, yes, workplace toxicity is largely, for now, the result of disagreement around politics.
Wow. I thought you weren't allowed to talk about politics at work, except for if you're a journalist. But look, you've got 5 different segments on the issues, right? We're not at Code Red, which is the most serious. We're currently sitting at Take Action in terms of incivility in the workplace. How would corporates deal with this? Because clearly it could affect corporate culture in the long term.
Well, not only does it affect corporate culture, and broadly that's right, but it's affecting corporate profitability and success. We know that employees who come to work and face an environment where they feel there's excess toxicity, and they ultimately will leave. So we have a retention problem, and there, notwithstanding the softening in the labor market, we still have a war for talent. Secondly, and perhaps worse, is when people come to work but aren't engaged and therefore aren't productive because they're so disengaged on account of being subjected to workplace toxicity. So this is a real business issue, and it's why we quantify the $2 billion a day that companies lose on account of this. Here's something that's really interesting. It's the point that you raised earlier. It takes the average person about 31 minutes to get it back together after they've experienced or been the subject of an act of workplace incivility. That is a huge loss of productivity that's affecting us in negative ways. So what do companies do? First of all, it's what we started here at SHRM now earlier in this year, and it's create an awareness, a conversation around the significance of incivility and why it is so important to be civil. But secondly, and most importantly, organizations have got to establish very clear policies. The policies can range from have no such conversations at work, right, around politics, or if you're going to, here are the guardrails. And chief amongst those are, you must treat your colleague according to not just the golden rule, but the platinum rule. Treat them how you want to be treated.
Yeah, and this is what's interesting, actually. According to a survey, the people who personally experience or witness incivility are more likely to commit uncivil acts themselves. So what are your tips to management and to bosses in terms of dealing with it and getting people to accept different views?
Well, no surprise, right? It's a tit for tat. Eye for an eye. And so people feel like if I've been subjected to it, I know how horribly it felt, then I'm going to lash out the next time someone comes my way. Counterintuitive in some ways. You'd like to think that we're better people after these incidents, but in fact, people exchange blows. What do we as employers need to do? As I said, in addition to the rules, we've got to train for civility. It's not enough to just tell people to be civil. We've got to talk to people and train them on how to be civil, for good or for bad. That's the reality that we find ourselves in. Next, model and monitor good behavior. Again, our employees are looking at us. So if you're a people manager and you're hosting a meeting and someone says something that you don't agree with, you can't engage in an uncivil way and then tell people that they shouldn't. So it's not do as I say and not as I do, that kind of thing. And finally, focus very much on this concept.
So it's turn the other cheek, basically.
That's right. That's right. Except no, right?
So turn the other cheek. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Johnny, it was so good to catch up with you. So thank you so much for your time, Johnny, there for us. All right, still ahead, a collapsed glacier, a mega tsunami, and 9 days of global shaking.